Welcome, everyone. Let's see, this is the April 24th meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission. Let's see, we just jump right into our regular agenda. Our first action item is approval of the March 27th minutes.
I'll move we approve.
Okay, we have a motion,
Second.
Sue, and a second, Victoria. We'll do a roll call vote, starting with Scott.
Aye.
Joel.
I'm going to abstain since I was absent.
Okay, Cole. Aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Victoria. Sue. Item passes. Let's see, we'll go to the public comment period. Since there's so many people here, we can probably skip right on by that. Our next item is the approval of the RCS for the comprehensive plan land use designation, zoning designation, and preliminary plat for 22.93 acre property generally located at the terminus of Mosier Street.
I'll move we approve that. I
Second.
read it.
All right.
Second.
So moved and seconded. We'll start with,
Yep.
yes,
Aye.
all three.
Oh.
So all three
Oh.
items, which,
The retaining the current comprehensive plan land use designation of auto urban residential, the rezoning of the subject property from ag forestry to moderate density R2, and the proposed preliminary plat of the 22.93 acre area.
Second, all three.
so we have a motion and a second. How about you want to go first, Sue?
Aye.
Aye.
Victoria? Nels? Aye.
Oh,
Joel?
I'm generally in approval of them. However, given my absence, I'm going to abstain.
Okay.
Aye.
Scott? Aye. So that passes. We'll move on to the fourth item. We're cruising through here. That is, so we have the same RCS for a 2.53 acre property located at the terminus of Wild Rose and south of Flomer Lane. And that is retaining the land use designation, rezoning, and preliminary plat. Do we have any motions or,
So move.
okay.
Second.
Mills. And we got a second?
Yep.
Yep. Victoria, seconds. We'll do a roll call vote. Sue,
Aye.
Aye.
Victoria,
Aye.
Miles. Aye. Aye. Cole.
Same as before.
Okay.
I will abstain.
Aye.
Joel, Scott. All right. Now we're just jumping right ahead here. We're just to the survey results. Look at us go. So are we going to have, are you doing any sort of presentation, or are we just opening it up for discussion?
Sure. Yeah, I was planning on it. Yeah,
Okay.
just going through, we've attached the 2023 commission survey, which has been published, and that's attached to your packet. So the entire survey for all the commissions. And I just had removed the ones from Planning and Zoning Commission. I think I have some Transportation Commission ones that might be relevant to us on there as well. So just kind of wanted to go through the results of those questions and then have a discussion if the commission wanted to. As you recall, this was our first question from the commission. So denser housing developments can reduce housing costs, increase housing inventory, and help reduce urban sprawl and costs related to expansion and maintenance of public infrastructure. When considering new residential developments, the city should. And then there are a number of different options here. So the rating system, it's a little bit different than maybe in years past. It took me a minute to kind of analyze and figure out exactly what was going on. But the rating system here is the lower score indicates the higher preference. And then there was a narrative there at the bottom that I think that when people were filling this out, they were a little there were some varying ways of scoring these. So it says some respondents chose to rank items with repeating numbers while others strictly state rated each item 1 through 6. Some responses also selected certain ones to rank rather than providing all options with the answer, which caused a variance in response rates. So take, maybe something to consider in the future. But we'll go through. So the highest scoring was, or the most preferred there was reduced lot sizes, reduced private yards, and more common green spaces. So I think this relates a lot to our conservation subdivision and traditional subdivision options in the subdivision code. So that's kind of nice to see some feedback there. Reduce lot sizes in single-family zones, increase housing density, potentially reduce housing costs. That scored second. Allow duplexes within single-family zones. Third, wider array of duplexes, condominiums, townhouses, and single-family zones. Not allow densification of single-family zones. And then quite a bit of negative feedback on allow all residential types in single-family zones. So I don't know that we're necessarily ready to eliminate all single-family zones in the city at this point based upon this. So any questions or discussion on this one?
When we look at these questions, Mike, somewhere, I think it's at the end, it talks about demographics. Demographics is going to influence the responses. So the questions alone don't stand alone. They actually have to be considered in terms of demographics, which I don't have memorized, but I do know a large percentage were older people, like myself, and not too many younger people. There were some, but I think it was like 15% or something that were student age,
Yeah.
college age. So, and I don't know how that relates to this, but because I read the whole survey a couple days ago, it makes the questions a bit difficult to interpret because you have to consider who's answering the questions.
Yeah, and I think historically that's probably been the case. I think, younger people are less likely to take the time to fill out a citizen survey like this. It's the kind of older demographic that I think takes a little bit more time. I think that's probably reflected in the, those numbers.
'Cause I would expect to see younger people come up with those numbers, and I don't expect the older people to come up with those numbers. So speaking as an older person myself.
Well, there are people who just don't care. So they choose not to participate.
No, but I mean the numbers we have.
Yeah.
Because it favors density.
Yeah.
And public hearings, people who come.
Not a lot of density. They're looks like they don't mind duplexes, but they're not wowed about all residential types.
Yeah, but everything else, they're into reducing lot sizes, common green space.
But don't like
more
densification of
density,
single
increased
family
housing
zones.
density.
But you only got a 24% return, so on
Yeah.
surveys, so.
Which is about the response rate, I think, that's in
Up to
line,
us to guess.
in line with that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that if people want to feel like their voices are heard, more people need to respond to these surveys.
Mhm.
Because we don't get as much as we certainly would like to see.
Yeah. Yep.
But I mean, that's all good news. It's
Yeah,
just not what's going to match when they come to the hearings. But
Yeah.
good news.
Yeah.
Well, you can always ask at the hearings.
Oh,
How
did you-
many of you filled out the survey?
Yeah. You don't know what you believe in until it happens next to you, right?
Right.
Which is very true
Yeah.
and very common and very, very human.
Yeah.
So, to be more, get away from this specific and be a little bit more general for a moment. Do we have any, I realize that you color the map, we color the map up in terms of people over here and down here, but is, in the reporting, is that relevant at all? Do we know? Then can we keep track of, in other words, I haven't studied it close enough, maybe I didn't know, but which area of town gets the best response? I was disappointed, of course, to see that we're down to 30%.
24?
And
It's less than 30.
that's as bad as we've ever been, really, which seems to be a COVID response, if you will. It seems like public activity has drifted away in general in the last several years.
Yeah, they go through the response rates based upon the different sectors. So the East was 19%, North Central was 24%.
Oh, okay, what page is that?
That's number one of the survey. But yeah, you can see just like the demographic trend, university response in the university area was 4%.
Right there.
It's
South
page one.
South was
Page one right
9%.
University,
No,
4%.
I just said,
Makes sense.
if you're looking for it in the packet, it's halfway through the packet. too.
It's interesting to note that when things were kind of tough in 2002, 2004, we got a much more vigorous response. I just remember,
What's happening in 2002?
I
The
don't know.
recession was 2008.
Well, it was
Eight,
2008, and that was, yeah, we got 31%, but it's interesting. I don't know what happened in 2002 and 2004, but we got a lot more response.
I wonder if 2002 and 2004 are just because it was something new
Maybe,
and
that may be.
and people are now just saying, oh, God, is that coming around again? Type of thing, you know? Yeah,
Well, the survey supports density and conservation.
Some,
Mostly.
because not allowed densification of single-family
Yeah,
zones.
they got the lowest score.
Yep.
With the highest numbers, the lowest score.
Interesting.
That's not what I expected.
yeah, I think that's a good thing.
So those people need to come to the hearings
And we just approved
and
the
say,
development of
that's a good
seven.
idea.
Yeah, the second question is pertaining to parking. We asked what degree do you think parking is a problem within the city of Moscow in the following locations? Downtown, my neighborhood, eastern commercial areas, so Tri Highway, and western commercial areas, Pullman Highway. Really not that big of a problem except for downtown. I mean, you can predict that. Obviously, there's just a perception of parking, issues downtown.
But we have,
Perception is a word for someone, yeah. I live there. It's more than a.
Yeah.
Because now you have all the nighttime people parking because there's more nighttime places to be. And then there's the school parking. And then there's downtown church parking is very big on Sundays. So there really isn't any downtime except between 2 and 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
and we get people come to hearings talking about parking in their neighborhoods.
Mhm.
So it doesn't show here, but we do get it.
Yeah.
And that's again, you maybe don't notice it over there, but when it's in your
I
neighborhood.
can't imagine that there is a city in America or Europe for that matter that doesn't have exactly the same problem. So it's not like it could be unique. Imagine trying to park in Manhattan, let's say. So,
But you have options. And there are options in Manhattan. There's a ton of taxi cabs in Manhattan, and there's a subway in Manhattan.
absolutely.
They're not-
And
until Moscow-
Absolutely.
And once Moscow went beyond Hay Street and then beyond Mountain View,
Mhm.
that's the
Sure.
issue. Because
That's true.
you can't, it's walking from the top of rolling hills downtown to get
It's just
groceries
not
and carrying them
possible.
back is not an option.
No, of course. Yeah, there's no doubt about that, but I don't know that we're not as spread as some. We've done our share of, and with our problem, as you said the other day, Sue, where's our little neighborhood shop?
Yes, that's right. That's
You know,
right.
because if you could
Go from milk,
get
butter,
a
and eggs.
few of those little neighborhood ones, it would, in other words, if you didn't have to drive downtown to just get a cup of coffee, I have to say that the coffee shop at the East Side Market is something that I rather have picked up on. And so some of those kinds of things, I don't know how to, even though people say they're for more density, they don't seem to like the idea of our businesses
No.
in their residential area.
Again, because when they come to the hearings, and of course, it's a select group that comes to a hearing. It's already a select audience that shows up for most of the hearings. But they typically don't want a coffee shop or a business in the new subdivision next door to them or in their backyard.
So they have to drive their 90-year-old mother-in-law everywhere. Anyway, it's nice to see some understanding of some more positive towards density.
Was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, certainly. Then our third question was really a follow-up to the parking issue. So what options are you interested in that might relieve parking problems in Moscow? The highest scoring was promote alternative mobility options, so transit viability, biking, walking, etc. Utilizing garages, driveways more rather than competing for street parking, dedicating parking on the outskirts of town for less used vehicles, none of the above. More surface parking lots to generate low tax returns in our dead zones, reduce parking spaces for residences/businesses and go first come, first serve. And a large costly to build parking structure was the least preferred there. And then it just notes there kind of at the bottom that, differences in how some respondents chose to rank within the system. So some surveys also had some of the options answered rather than all of them. For example, alternative mobility options had 78.3% response rate, whereas surface parking lots had 67.8.
Oh,
And
they didn't even
then,
answer. They didn't
then some
even
people,
rank it.
and some people left some comments on the survey regarding the verbiage that was used for the options provided, stating that it was a biased question. The one that pertained to a large, costly to build parking structure. So.
Mhm.
Well, I say, yeah, you can ask, do you want Santa to bring you one present or you want him to bring you five? You're going to say five. And then you say, but you got to pay for that extra four. So, if you're going to be transparent and have a realistic question, you put that in there. So,
Well,
because otherwise, sure.
it was interesting to
Hand
me
me free
today
money.
as I was walking that Lightcast is obviously prepared for when they put, the original plan was to put a second building where
St. John's.
St. John's Hardware is. So I noticed on A Street, there's a Lightcast only parking. There's that big parking lot east of Lightcast, that's their parking only. And then, of course, all around their building is their parking only. So they've and it wasn't full, but they're obviously planning for,
Yeah,
obviously done their homework and what's needed for the future. So I was happy to see that.
yeah, and originally the originally approved plans have that as a parking lot on the existing St. John
Oh, so
site.
that'd be even more parking.
They were just, I think that they were just looking at, their options of potentially building another building, a similar building there.
They
But
talked about putting a bridge between the
Yeah.
two buildings.
and that was before they ended up purchasing, I don't know if that was part of the original, purchase or not, but the eastern lot across the highway there, they, ended up developing that, and that pretty much put them over the top as satisfying the parking for the existing building. So, but,
I was thinking St. John's had quite a bit of parking. That they might
if you
have had
tour,
that
yeah,
east
when you
lot.
tear, what
Might
was
have that east
approved
lot.
when you tear the building down and look, I mean, that was all
Yeah.
parking on the original
Yeah,
plan.
but that east lot, that might have been St. John's.
Yeah, it was.
Yes, it was.
And then Transportation Commission had a few questions that I thought we'd just cover here. So their first question was, how often do you use the following methods of transportation within Moscow city limits? So personal automobile, the highest, walking or using mobility aid. Actually, scored fairly high, 42% for daily, 31% for weekly. Bicycles, 13% daily, 17% weekly, and then other, e-bike, motorcycle, et cetera, pretty much never or, monthly. And public transit, bus, not a large response either as far as utilization.
You get a lot of utilization from the bus. I used to use it more and I will use it some more again, but right now getting up steps too hard. You get a lot of student use.
I was gonna say, younger
Awful lot
people,
of
they
student-
don't have the surveys. The
Yeah,
younger
and
people
they
don't have the
They
survey.
didn't really answer the survey. And particularly international students don't show up with a car.
Yeah.
Can't pack it on the plane, They may get one later, but they
Yeah.
don't show up with a car.
Yep.
So you get
We should have a pizza party at the university. If you could get a piece of pizza and to fill out a form, we could do it. Because I wonder, Mike, do you have any idea of the so-called cool places where more people ride bikes? What does the percentage get to? It's hard for me to imagine it gets 13 seems pretty good.
I mean, yeah, per capita, I think we were one of the highest in the nation, at one point in time. I think those numbers are a little outdated, but yeah, I recall like in our comp plan, I mean, we were in the top 10 in the nation, per capita for bicycle commute, at least commuting on a bicycle. Yeah, I mean, Amsterdam's probably 80%. I don't know, but yeah, it's interesting. Could probably do a little research and figure out some numbers, but
There's also a population that uses the bus that don't have cars. I'm one. I mean, I walk where I can walk, but I can't walk. Some places are too far. Or you take the bus and I walk home. But when I rode the bus a lot, I talked to a lot of people who, for their jobs, for Winco, for everything. I'm impressed when I see the students get off the bus and you're carrying 10 bags of, I don't know how they do it, 10 bags of groceries. But
yeah, it's tough to walk or bike, when you need to get a week's worth of groceries. So
So Mike, since the survey's been going out since like 2002, and our population has grown, has our percentage number of surveys increased along with the population?
I think it's remained at 1,200 is the
Period.
typical, that go out.
I'm just thinking if the population has grown, maybe we should send out more surveys. And do you, according to sections of the city, what's the percentage that of the 1,200 that each section of the city gets? Do you know that?
It's fairly, I mean, it's fairly even as far as the percentage. I mean, they're randomly selected and then throughout the city. And then, I'm actually responsible for georeferencing into our GIS database and everything. So I look at them and they're typically tend to be fairly even as far as the distribution. So.
Okay.
And do we have any sister cities anywhere that we might ask them how their questionnaire is going. It'd be interesting to have a little comparison between, I don't think it's, doesn't seem sensible to compare different sizes, but, you know, in that sort of 15 to 30,000 arena, it'd be interesting. It seems to me, I suppose we really only should think about comparing ourselves to other college towns, because we have, it seems, a fairly brilliant leadership in town and management that many towns of 20 or 30,000 don't have, it seems to me. I always feel like we're blessed to have and people who stick around and what have you. So it'd be interesting if you, well, on someday when you don't have anything to do, you might find 3 or 4 college towns that we could call them up and ask what.
Or even try and ask some of the same questions in the
Yeah.
future.
I'd be interested to see
If we could-
if they even do citizen surveys or commission surveys,
Right,
you know, I mean, I don't know if that's unique to us. Probably not. I mean, there's probably some out there. I mean, it's a good tool for getting, you know, information.
And does Pullman do a one of these little
You know,
questionnaires?
honestly, I'm not sure.
It's a long ways away over there, so it's really hard to contact them. One day I said to the mayor of Pullman, you know, I said, oh God, it's, you know, it's good to see you. It's, you know, 80 miles over here. It's a long way. And he looked at me, I think he wanted to hit me. I was trying to be funny and he just, and that was their very best mayor. He didn't like the idea of suggesting that it's a long way.
Well, in Lewiston, if you live way up in the orchards, just to get downtown to the bridge
Right.
is 8 miles, just about. Or it takes, it may not be 8 miles, but it takes just as long.
Yeah, that's the thing.
interesting.
One of the things that we're blessed with is that the university is within walking distance of downtown, so that we, because downtown Lewiston is struggling to this very moment. It's really not working. They tried to, you know, put a taps down there and they couldn't make it. So, which is really, I thought, gosh, a beer hall in Lewiston, it'd be wonderful, but not down on Main Street. You have to have it up on Thane, apparently.
Anyway, is there anything here that jumped out at you, Mike, as being really significant?
Oh, he's got the other transportation question.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
think we've got one more question here from transportation. Their second questions was,
Yes.
in terms of your priorities, which transportation investments do you feel are most important? And then the highest scoring there are maintaining and improving street and sidewalk surfaces and providing a continuous network of safe and accessible sidewalks.
Now, I would make a comment. We're back to Santa Claus. Because people don't know that it's the homeowner that has to replace the sidewalks. They think the city does it. If they were told on your dime, I bet those numbers would be different.
Well, in 1982, 83, the city went through the town and put a spray painted X on every piece of sidewalk that needed to be replaced. And you didn't have an option. You were to replace it. Now, I know the city's gone to the point, and I know Tyler has it, saying, well, it's cheaper for it's more economical for people to replace their sidewalks when the city's already contracted for the concrete. And so you can,
Sidewalk program, yeah.
yeah, sidewalk program. But I don't see that happening. But it would be interesting if in the water bill, people were told that if you don't repair your sidewalks, you must prove a $1 million umbrella policy for insurance for when someone falls on your sidewalk and you didn't fix it. So that might make people actually do it. Because that's what happens. If you have a bad sidewalk and someone falls down, it's not the city that gets sued, it's the homeowner. So that might be an option.
I thought they had, you had 2 years to do it, and if you didn't, the city did it, but they added it onto your property tax bill.
Well, there are plenty of
That was in the
sidewalks
80s.
that have been
Well,
just,
that was before, not
Yeah.
now. I mean, the sidewalks.
maybe we should give Orchid Awards to blocks, not individuals, but take a block or maybe
Orchid
4
Awards.
blocks and say this block or this, 4 blocks, they get an orchid. These, and we wouldn't give bad marks to the other ones, but it would give people a chance to think, why did they get an orchid?
Now you have to figure out how you tell those people that, since the newspaper is going to be 2 days a week.
Yeah.
How do you let people know? How do you get people to find out
Yeah,
and care? But anyway, I just thought that was interesting because that's a fact. It's not like a threat. It's if somebody falls and hurts themselves, then that homeowner is liable. And so if they don't want to put in a sidewalk, provide the money to pay for it and the injury.
Yeah, I did.
you should see the good sidewalks out in some of our developments on,
Yes, yes.
when they put in sidewalks, they are fine.
Well, a lot of
I don't know
it's.
anyone who does that
Yeah,
work.
a lot of
I
it's,
don't know
a
anyone.
lot of it's selecting the right tree in the tree lawn, I mean, that's the major.
That's a lot of it, is that
Yeah.
trees do a lot of damage
Yeah.
and
And yet we love our trees, so that's a tough balance.
I did the sidewalk program
It is-
15
it
years
is-
ago or
yeah,
something.
it's a
And did
shocking what
almost
trees
half of
do
my
over
sidewalk.
there.
So I talked to a lot of people, my neighbors and stuff. They all threw a
Pretty good
fit
one
when
follow
they found
there.
out it's the homeowner that has to pay for it. But I did use the sidewalk program. I
Yeah.
was happy with it.
But you see, 61%.
I remember when it fell down.
Yeah, because they don't know they pay for it. That's what I'm saying. They don't know they pay for it. Sure, they
Like
will.
I said, put that in the water bill and
They're
someone
getting
will
all-
notice. Might be the landlord, but just proof of insurance for this. Or fix it.
Yeah, and then I guess of other note, improved crossing of US 95, State Highway 8 for pedestrians. And then, they've been talking about at least smart transit, potentially, bringing back the bus service between Moscow and Pullman, including service to the airport, which, received fairly high priority there. So,
Well, it supports our underpasses. The one on White Avenue,
Yeah.
the one that's going in on the highway.
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's, I think all the questions, and then all the other questions, I went through the whole survey to look at any other commission questions, and I think these were the most pertinent to us, so.
Well, the other thing is the bus service between Moscow and Pullman.
Yeah.
It got used on the weekend some, but it was an awful lot of students because of the 2 colleges. And students aren't answering the survey. They're not putting the numbers in.
Yeah, I think trying to get maybe like a QR code or something more accessible for students on how they kind of like operate and make their decisions, right? Because I think the actual mechanics of filling out a survey, putting it in an envelope, putting a stamp on it, getting it to a mailbox, it's a lot of effort for a
Stamp and
19-year-old. I
addressing?
know, I tell
Oh
you.
my God, they don't know how.
I mean, they probably know how, but it's the effort to do it, right? And so I think that if we can get creative with these kind of surveys, for any sort of like sync up with like a QR code or something to get a greater response rate is something to look at going forward for sure.
And once they get started, they don't know how many questions.
Yeah, I know. And then that's where we trick them. Yeah, that's where we trick them.
Of course, now, it's not so much, it's not always just students. It's that a lot of people commute to Schweitzer
Mm-hmm.
and they live here.
Mhm.
And if they could, maybe you could get Schweitzer to help put in, because now that they've got their 2 operating facilities, well, several buildings in Pullman, but they might consider putting in contributing to, or at least during shift change, because they have like, I'm sure they have round the clock shifts, but during that, make a pit stop at the mall in between and
Well, the council has talked about the survey in the past, because I sit here in the meetings, and about going online versus paper. And a huge amount of your responses are coming from older people. And a lot of older people don't do the online. I just have a cell phone, trying to fill out a survey on a cell phone. Get out, you know, it's really, you can't see anything.
so more than one way to.
But I don't know why we couldn't I can't remember the reasoning why we didn't have the option for both.
To my understanding, and I'm coming at this just from hearsay from past, is that there was a little bit of a nervousness if we just make it open from online without like a secure link, then anybody from anywhere could potentially get on, you know, and fill out a survey that relates to our town, but not specifically living in our town, right? So kind of the control mechanism by which of sending out the surveys, you know, in that kind of way keeps it more contained, right? But I still think that there's definitely a place to explore having both in some capacity, right? They could still be synced up in a safe, secure link as it relates to being a resident in Moscow. So,
I have no idea. I don't use it. QR codes.
yeah.
You
It's
can do it with
nothing to
your
me. Yeah, no, you can do it with your phone. I've actually done it once or
But anyway.
twice. but could you link it somehow to the water bill so that it's only in, because although on the other hand,
Then you'd have landlords.
I was going to just say, but then the students don't get it because it's just the
Right.
landlord that gets it. So we have another problem. So, yeah, well, council can think about that.
Absolutely.
All right, well,
I have, you brought,
Is there-
I have, I don't know, it's not on here, so maybe Mike has, I'd have to find it again. It's in here somewhere. Affordable housing. Affordable housing, they reported a really low amount of money going toward their mortgage percentage.
That's what you brought up.
That was interesting.
And if it's the older population answering the survey, they probably own their home, so they're not paying mortgages. But, and if it's 5 students in a 2-bedroom apartment and their rent is cheap, but it was odd. It was very odd. And, you know, we look at affordable housing too, in terms of density helps with affordable
Well, it goes to
housing.
rent. Rent
page
was also
4.
included in the question. What
Where are we?
percentage of your gross monthly income goes to rent or monthly mortgage payment?
Let's see.
4.
yeah, page 4.
Page 4.
So anyway, I was curious if you had any insight.
I would assume that just tracks the general demographic that we've, you know, seen here, just older
Okay.
people that may already own their house. You know, I mean, this would point to already owning your house. If you're paying less than 10% of your gross household income in mortgage or rent, I mean, that's really low.
Seems really low, yeah.
Yeah.
It's at, I mean, 42% is 20% or less of their gross monthly income goes to rent or monthly mortgage payments.
Maybe you need a parenthesis. If you own your home, if you already paid off your mortgage, consider you're paying property taxes, because if you rent, you're not paying property tax. But if you own your home, you're paying mortgage and insurance on it. I'm not mortgage, you're paying
Anyway.
property tax and
Anyway.
insurance on it. Anyway.
Anyway.
Interesting.
It stood out. It stood out.
Who would ever consider owning their home?
Well, nowadays, if people switch jobs and jump around the country every 2-3 years, you don't necessarily want to own it because you wouldn't get your closing costs back.
But if everybody's going to work at home,
That's another thing.
it's another thing.
But
Yeah.
it's interesting. That's been discussed. I could keep moving
Well,
around.
for at least many of us, it's the only wealth you have. So you have to steal from it
Yeah,
time and time again.
but if you work for X or Twitter or any of those people where they
Well,
get
yeah,
laid off
that's a whole-
regularly, Google,
yeah,
you get laid
right,
off
right,
regularly,
right.
you can't. And a house is not in the cards. So I'd like to hear from the younger people on the commission who may not own their houses outright. Or what you know from.
Not outright, no. I would not fall into the under
Me neither.
10%.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Well, what are our conclusions? Survey supports density.
We need to have a higher percentage of,
Yeah.
another way of getting more people
Yeah.
and increase the number of surveys so that we can get, because it doesn't represent the population, 24%.
And
If
we
you have 4 kids and only 1 kid wants to go to the zoo, that doesn't, you got 3 that don't. That's significant.
I always figure if they read it, doesn't sound like a lot of people are reading the survey. But
There aren't
at
that many
least,
surveys, huh?
if only 23, well, they may, if they responded, they read it, and if they didn't respond, they probably didn't read it. They might have read page half and then said, forget it. But if they read it, it would show them and what the city is looking at, and that the city is trying to respond to things we hear. And the commissions, most of them maybe don't even know what the commissions are, or a lot of them don't know what the commissions are. And we give them some insight, but you have to read the survey to do that.
So do you think having the survey is worthwhile when we're doing all the second guessing, going, well, maybe they didn't read it, maybe they don't care, maybe they're old, and then we're discounting all the information it gives us?
Well, I mean, not a statistician, but it does say that this is statistically valid, the results, 24% and the sample size. So, I mean, that they go off of,
So they're saying nationally, nobody cares. So this is statistically valid among national surveys because an average of 24, not that many people respond. It's basically,
I'm not the one that puts out the survey, but yeah, apparently there's kind of baselines as far as what's statistically valid or not. And the results meet that threshold.
we still got almost 300 responses. So
yeah, that's pretty good.
it's quite a few people.
Gives a glimpse.
And we are still hanging on to that idea of our town. I think you just go to our capital city, or I'm not even convinced about Coeur d'Alene, but to talk about what's happening in the town, people, after living in New York, it seemed clear that people are only interested in their neighborhood. That's what they're interested in. I mean, a neighborhood 10 miles away or 15 miles away is of zero interest. And we have yet, we have some little kind of a sense of neighborhood quality, but mostly we're still think about Moscow as our place. At least I'm able to do that in I think of my town. And so it gives a better, I think our responses to this are better than if I'm just trying to imagine Boise right now trying to do it. It seems silly because the North End is so dramatically different than the folks out at 5 Mile on the way to Meridian. It's just an entirely different.
So you're saying they would have different priorities, that they wouldn't even,
Yeah.
they would respond to a survey in terms of their own area.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's right. And what you have, at least in New York, are these neighborhood organizations. and we see what happens with a development that happens out there close to Third Street. We know who those neighbors are because they show up every time. But in New York, okay, a new building's going on up around on 73rd Street on the west side. Well, my God, every person in the neighborhood is raving and having placards and what have you. And and they could be totally uninterested in what's going on the east side over on the other side of the park. Well, that's a whole nother world over there. Yeah. So I think we're at least, it's a pretty bucolic situation yet. I'll get out of here in a couple of years and leave it, and you can see if it grows, see if it changes. You got to put in a little neighborhood over off of Palouse, yeah.
Little neighborhood business,
Neighborhood business.
milk, eggs, bread, and candy bars for kids to bicycle down.
So what was the most, does staff sit around and talk about these? What was the most shocking thing or the most interesting thing, I should say, that came out of the report? You know, the one that thought, wow, who would have thought?
I was just pleased with the responses as far as the increased density, I mean, as far as maybe reducing lot sizes, setbacks, and then potentially allowing maybe more duplexes in single family zones. I was,
Right.
I
Well, at
was-
least
I was
there wasn't
encouraged by those.
anything there.
Yeah.
But I just wondered with regard to all the people, as you deal with all the commissions, it'd be just to see if anybody was shocked or whether life is going on pretty normally in Moscow. Yeah, I like the idea that while it isn't dramatically excitable about a density, you don't sense any resentment,
Yeah, animosity.
which I think is
I like the part about where it talked about people were in favor of more density along with open space. In other words, not just cramming a whole bunch of apartments together, but as we often said,
Could be
Yeah,
a leading
up on-
question.
huh?
Could be a leading question.
Well, no, up on
Answer.
Third, yeah, but up on Third with those old buildings that were basically built after World War II that look like
Right.
barracks, but they have interior space for green space, even though it's kind of run down, and they've got interior parking. But when you've got green space in the middle where people can see out, it's kind of like if you're on the cruise ship and you've got the balcony, you don't mind having a small room because you can see out, but the people in the middle on the inside don't like it so much. But so that's, I think, the making not just density, but allowing green space. But that's what PUDs used to do too. They would put more density and then have some open space. So I like that. We shouldn't totally separate density from open space.
So I would mention, as we're talking about all this, that the Mayor's Earth Day Awards, Community Development got an award, and it was for sustainability, for density and water conservation and all these types of things that we're talking about. Lead toward, conservation.
Very nice.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, if nobody has anything else to add,
Transportation, did it meet?
I was gonna just ask, yeah. Joel, is there any report from Transportation Commission?
The last meeting of the Transportation Commission met on, let's see, the 14th, so 10 days ago. And the main topic of the meeting was a look at the Wild Rose Court and Pine View addition to see whether there were any comments from the members about those developments. And I did not attend that meeting, and because I'm not supposed to, that's ex parte contact.
Yep.
So I was not there. My presumption is that there was no, I think the conversation that went on was on access and alleyways and so on. But if this commission did not hear anything conveyed from staff from the Transportation Commission, I don't think the Transportation Commission had any major problems with the either of the two proposals. The next meeting of the Transportation Commission is on May 9th. So that's a ways away yet.
Yeah.
So I do not have an agenda yet for that.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Are there any other announcements? Do you have anything, Mike?
Nothing from staff, no.
Okay, well, our next meeting is May 8th, the day before. And nobody has anything else. We are adjourned.
Thank you.